in 2015, he could kind of credibly make this claim. Like he definitely in the 2015 election got to the NDP's left on a number of issues, and did appear to be the sort of fresh-faced progressive in that race. Um, but it's weird that like we're 6 years into this thing, we can look at his record and we can match his record up with this kind of promises that we made and this kind of vision that he was laying out there, and see that it doesn't really go together. Yet he's still kind of making this claim. He's still doing that same strategy, and it's incredible that anyone is still there's still a constituency out there that's buying this. You know.
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, I think that he still to this day, 6 years on, gets such servile treatment, in uncritical treatment in the corporate and state media in this country, that actually, I think there are a lot of people in this country who still think he is a progressive, pragmatic, political option. So yeah, we're seeing in this last, the last days of the last week of the election, them not only recycling a lot of promises like this one, but also working overtime to try to shore up their climate record, which I think you spoke. I missed the earlier broadcast, but I think you spoke about that. But like they have had all their top organic intellectuals out there working Twitter, the Gerald Butts, the Andrew Leaches, the Sandy Garasinos, trying to still make the claim that Trudeau's climate record is impeccable and the best out there, which is astonishing, but also effective when in the way that they do it. And they've been really effective at kind of coordinating this like organic intellectual pylon the last week, at getting the right what they call validator voices, writing the op-eds that then they're referencing. I mean, Trudeau himself, like, I don't know how many million followers he has, but he was tweeting out like a blog post from Andrew Leach, citing, this independent expert on climate. Andrew Leach is not an expert.
He's an economist.
He's an economist. He's not a climate expert, and he's certainly not independent. He's deeply invested in, neoliberal centrist politics and deeply invested in liberal governance in this country. And yet, at the same time, like Trudeau and the Liberals are wheeling him out as a a validator voice. So it's on one hand it's quite desperate, but on the other hand it's still quite effective, because you see those you see like the class of media class like amplifying this and being like, oh well, maybe Trudeau is our best bet for a climate a chance at combating the climate crisis. But honestly, like just go like rehearsing what the trajectory of the promise on electoral reform is, I think, a really interesting way of getting to the like absolute cynicism at the heart of liberal rule in this country. Because like I don't know, it's worth going over like back in 2015 how central that promise was to their progressive appeal, and like I remember someone did a count and they repeated the promise 1,813 times, like during that campaign. The last election under the first past the post was like one of his key slogans.
Yes.
But then the way they managed it, like over the next few years in Parliament, was fascinating. Like they held consultations, and then they refused to release the results of the consultations because they knew that they were in favor of proportional representation. And then when they were finally forced to release it, then they were like, well, we're going to do a second round of consultations, because the first round of consultations didn't go the way they wanted them to. And then they did this, like, I don't know if you remember, but they did this like pop psych survey for their second round, where they weren't directly asking people what system they wanted, what voting system they wanted. They asked them about their like values. So it actually generated no useful information. And then after basically like the people had voted the wrong way, they shifted tack and started basically adopting a right-wing line on proportional representation, which is that it's a dangerous, unstable system that would empower the far right, which is just not true at all. Like in proportional systems around the world, usually it's progressive parties who are empowered, and it's far more collaborative in terms of legislation. So and then we come to 2019, and then they kept quiet about it for a few years, and now he's like, in the home stretch, he's bringing it back. You were right to say that, less as a direct promise and more as like, if reelected, we'll look at it again. But but the way the media is covering it, like the headline in the article was, let me just pull it up. Trudeau says he remains open to electoral reform if Liberals are reelected.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a golden headline, in this like key weekend. So
yeah.
Yeah, they know what they're doing. That's for sure.
Yeah. And so certainly when we talk about, the ways that they've been able to, the Liberal Party in particular, and Justin Trudeau has managed to overcome this deficit when it comes to like their actual, promises versus what their actual actions has been. The sort of media establishment in this country has been, helping out with that project a lot over the last couple of years, and especially over the course of this election as well.
Yeah, there's a deep synchronicity, I think, in especially the liberal wing of the media in this country. Like, I think for the reason that honeymoon was so prolonged initially was that I think many of the kind of establishment pundits and voices, they saw common cause in Trudeau and in the kind of national project that he had, like the burnishing of Canadian pride abroad. Like they felt a real stake in that, And then interestingly, I think the other wing of the Canadian media, the more conservative wing, are ones who are generally so out of touch with reality that they claim Trudeau is like, a closet Marxist who wants to shut down the tar sands. And that actually ends up reinforcing the very image of, a radical change maker that the Liberals want to be projecting. So they either get their dinner handed to them completely, or, people play into their hands. So
another similarity with Obama there as well.
Yes.
And also you can't really separate Trudeau from the fact that he was, the bulk of his time as prime minister was when Donald Trump was president as well. And he just every single day, just by nature of just showing up and not being a total moron every single day, not being a total racist moron, looked great and allowed people, especially people in the sort of liberal establishment in this country, to sort of take a certain amount of pride. And I think they were encouraged in that context to kind of paper over a lot of the really terrible things about his tenure, because it's just like, well, look how much better we're doing than the United States. And that I feel like that was a central part of his legacy, the fact that he was
not Trump,
not being Trump. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting now having Biden in the White House, someone who is like, a consummate conservative corporate like Democrat, but who's still to the left of Trudeau. And I think Trudeau doesn't have that like orange freakish like neo-fascist foil. So I think that's probably a big part of the reason he's lost that luster and shine. And it's much harder to pull off the kind of Trudeau formula, as it were, these days.
Yes. Although it does seem still to be paying some dividends, maybe not the exact same as before. But so we talked about the media and the way that the media has played a large role in kind of rubber stamping this tenure as prime minister. And that's exactly what we're doing here today. That's why I've been interested in kind of helping to build alternative media institutions. And that's what The Breach is about as well, right? Do you want to just talk about what made you want to sort of make moves in this independent media space, and what The Breach is about and what we're hoping to accomplish there?
Sure. Well, I mean, first off, like it's amazing to see this kind of like veritable renaissance happening in left media and independent media in this country. It's really exciting. And I think Harbinger has been playing a tremendous role in like convening and supporting a lot of the left podcast media that's happening. So I've been around independent media for almost 20 years, 15, 20 years. And like, let me tell you, it did not feel as hopeful back in 2005, 2006, when we were kind of at the tail end of the anti-globalization movement, and some of those initial experiments in independent media, like indie media, had started to kind of fizzle or go kind of like a little conspiratorial in some of the open source formats. And I was involved with a project called the Media Co-op in the Dominion, which was essentially an anarchist federation of independent outlets in Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal, and Halifax. And we did a bunch of, we published a magazine and also like helped convene the indie media centers at things like the G20 in Toronto in 2010, or the Vancouver Olympics. And yeah, it was a slog and a hustle back then. There wasn't the same kind of public responsiveness and support for independent projects. I think like the membership-based model or the crowdfunding model of journalism just like wasn't common back then. So I think in many ways too, like what we've seen over the last few years is the increasing collapse of the corporate model. And I think people understand that better now than they used to. So I think a group of us felt that it was like time to try again. The breach is much like, you know, the various projects in the Harbinger network, an attempt to build a credible but radical media outlet that can actually reach into the mainstream and popularize radical ideas through critical journalism and effective storytelling. So
yeah, and we're going to be covering the election on Monday starting at 8 p.m. right? I'm going to be hosting our election coverage. It's an incredible panel of guests we've got lined up for Monday on the Breach's YouTube page. I posted the link in the chat a couple times. I'm going to post it again if you want to RSVP for that. I'm really looking forward to it. Again, the panel is going to be unbeatable. You just want to talk about who is going to be coming on Monday to help break down the election as it happens?
So I think
on our live broadcast.
Yeah, there'll be L. Jones, who's a brilliant activist and writer and poet from the East Coast, Naomi Klein, Pam Palmater. You'll be hosting Riley Yesno, a really super smart Anishinaabe writer and researcher. Luke Savage will be there. Nora Loretto. Yeah, so it's a pretty
and Naomi Klein.
Oh, Naomi, did I not mention her? Yeah, Naomi
that's
Klein.
The big.
I guess that's probably the big draw
lead with that
for some of the listeners.
Yeah. But I'm really looking forward to that broadcast. I think it's going to be really great. Like we were talking about, this is not something that even really existed, I think, 5 years ago at the first election. I tried to get a little.
You live streamed, of course. You should.
I did the previous one. Yeah, the previous one in 2018. I did try to start dipping a toe in that world. It was kind of my first experience with one of these live streams. I've done many hundreds of hours of it since then. So it's really exciting for me personally just to be a part of that and to be associated with the Breach. I think it's really cool. It's a really cool project. So I'm looking forward to it. Martin, thanks for coming on the.
No worries, man. There's some folks who are what's really got me excited is there's some folks who are doing like screenings. Like there's a guerrilla screening in Toronto happening, and I know some folks in Montreal are also doing home viewings. And like one friend just messaged me yesterday saying that he's got like a lefty bingo card set up for all his friends with like words like austerity. So every time we use our favorite buzzwords, like someone's going to win at his house. So
all right.
So that's pretty cool.
You probably don't turn it into a drinking game because that could get dangerous when we talk about some of these buzzwords. It's going to be dangerous for people.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course, Martin. Always great to talk to you. And I'll see you on Monday at the Breach Studios. It's going to be really cool.
Totally. Good luck with the rest of the telethon.
All right. Take care, man. Martin Lukacs, everyone. Thanks so much to Martin. Very, very cool. Always a pleasure to speak to him. We're doing good. This telethon's off to a great start. For some reason, I had to change my title, the title of the stream. Hopefully that's working now. Again, I think we removed the widget for donors. We're going to try and fix that at some point. Eventually, we're going to get that back. Just remind everyone, though, once again, hold on, I just have to get my exclamation point here. I have to copy and paste my exclamation point, as one does. Again, if you want to support the work that we're doing here on the Harbinger Media Network, so many really great content creators are part of this network, so many great podcasts. I can't even fucking name them all. Alberta Advantage, Big Shiny Takes. We have the exclusive Harbinger Society Presents podcast. The audio version of my stream, the Rob Rousseau show, that's on there. Please, and also you can use the Harbinger command as well in the chat if you want to just go to the network site to see all the different shows, all the amazing content creators that are part of the network. It's a really, really incredible thing to be a part of. So, and again, it's completely 100% supported by listeners, no corporate backing, no dark money funding the Harbinger Media Network. So if you've got a few bucks, even a dollar or two, anything helps, any little bit helps. Head on over to the link that I just posted in the chat. !donate is the command. Head over to the chat and please, if you can, donate. Really, really, it really helps. Every little bit helps. Biggerwig says, I have a yearly subscription to Harbinger and it changed my life. You'd be a real dummy not to sign up. And I think that's maybe a little bit harsh language. Obviously, this is a family stream. It's a family media network. That's going to just be a warning, Biggerwig. No, it's not big, no big deal. Obviously we all make mistakes, but let's try to make sure we tone down the rhetoric a little bit. But it's true, though. It is true. It is true. It's life-changing. It is life-changing. And like Martin said, it's just like, in terms of the independent media landscape in Canada, this stuff just did not exist. Even 5 years ago, but 5-10 years ago, this did not exist. There's no independent media scene such as it is. Obviously, a few things like Martin was mentioning, a few disparate attempts to create something like this. But everything that we're seeing right now with the whole podcasting community in Canada, Harbinger Media, The Breach, all of this stuff is really, there's kind of a renaissance going on. It's all really emerged over the last couple of years. It's a really, really exciting thing to be a part of. I'm so, so proud to be a part of it. But again, all the stuff, it's 100% supported by listeners. That's why we're doing this telethon. So I encourage everyone to donate if they can, but even those of you that are hanging around in the chat and watching the content today, we really love you and appreciate you as well. Maybe not quite as much as those that can donate. Maybe it's not quite the same level of love and appreciation, but it's like very close. Okay, you're the level right below, which is still something to be proud of. That's still something you should be proud of. So what do we think of Martin? Thanks again to Martin. Do you have any comments, chat? We're waiting for the off-court pod boys to show up. They should be coming in like 10 minutes. In the meantime, sound off in the chat. What do we think? What do we think about all this stuff? Just wanted to say I'm a big fan of the Tech Won't Save Us podcast on Harbinger. Another one of the absolutely incredible podcasts as part of this network. Paris Marks, I've talked to him a number of times. He came on my podcast a few months ago to talk about Jeff Bezos. He came on my stream again a while ago to talk about the fake billionaire space race. I love Paris Marks. Tech Won't Save Us, an incredible podcast. Award-winning. It's an award-winning podcast. He's going to be part of this telethon as well. I actually don't have the schedule in front of me, so I can't tell you when exactly, but at some point, Paris is going to be joining this very telethon. He said Bezos was good, if I remember correctly. That's right. That we did a whole podcast to talk about how we think that Bezos is good. And this the whole space race thing is actually really cool and inspiring. That's what that was about. That's right. Yes, really big on Alberta Advantage as well. I mean, pretty much the flagship podcast as part of this, the Harbinger Media Network. We can think about Alberta as being just this kind of deeply reactionary place, and certainly those elements are there. I don't want to say that they're not. There's a long tradition of amazing activism and leftists in Alberta as well. It's got a really rich history that we don't talk about that much, and the work that Alberta Advantage does as well, week in, week out, to call attention to some of these stories and these historical stories and current events and putting their own spin on it. Not this Albertan. There we go. So they do a really amazing work as part of this network. They've got a whole incredible segment planned for this very stream later on. They're going to be doing some gaming. They're going to be watching documentaries. Like, I can't stress enough, folks, we're an hour and 22 minutes into this stream here. We're going to be going all day. We're going to be going all day. We're going to be going all day until midnight. So many amazing people coming on to talk about all these various subjects today. And by the way, Sebs, I don't know if you're still there. I don't know if you're still there in the chat. I did see you pointing out that I'm so communist that I've spent the last 2 weeks talking about electoralism, which is true. But also, even Lenin said this, which is that during these electoral seasons, you have a whole bunch of people that are all of a sudden paying attention to politics when maybe they normally wouldn't be. So it doesn't mean that we're breaking down all the electoralism stuff, but it's a great time to have all these discussions. If we want to talk about the way that our electoral system is inadequate, if we want to talk about the way that our liberal democracy is actually not much of a democracy, that now is a great time to do it, because we can talk about that stuff all year round. But during election season, all of a sudden we have all kinds of different people, different folks paying attention to the news and politics, paying attention to the electoral process. And that's when we can, convert them to become communists themselves. Just to respond to that, just in case anyone thought I was becoming a lib now, which would actually be offensive and possibly legally actionable. Kevlar Ninja says, thank you, Rob. I'm so tired of my fellow Easterners being like, oh, Alberta's a lost cause. They're all conservative assholes. Like, you want to make this whole ass country socialist and you give up the first time people don't automatically accept your ideas. Yeah, I mean, it's important for us all to understand this. We see it a lot in Quebec too, right? We see a lot of people completely write Quebec off, even though Quebec has a longer tradition of like social democracy. People say that it's like unreachable, that it's just like hopelessly racist. As we saw some controversy in the debates about this. People kind of focusing on the Quebec's racism, which I don't want to say that there's not racism in Quebec, or that Bill 21 in Quebec isn't in practice discriminatory. There is obviously a plenty of systemic and discrimination in Quebec. There's racism in Quebec, but Canada in general, overall, as a country, is very racist. That's the reality. And when we suggest that like Alberta is uniquely racist or uniquely reactionary, or Quebec is like uniquely racist, uniquely reactionary, I don't think that's really true. Obviously, these elements are in every province. And this is the kind of myths that we're trying to dispel in the work that we're doing in independent media. And Pepto States has started to spoil Rob's surprise, but as a special treat to us, the telethon's going to get a guest appearance from Jason Kenney. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Wouldn't that be wonderful? Maybe that's true. I don't know. He's just going to come out the door behind me there. The door to my bathroom that you see behind me. Eventually, Jason Kenney's just going to burst through it like the fucking Kool-Aid man. English Canadians love pretending they care about racism when it's an occasion to hate Quebec. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And like, this is the thing, you have to, when you talk about this conversation, you have to kind of walk this line between, I don't want to suggest that there's not discrimination, that there's not systemic racism in Quebec. Of course there is. But the idea that this is like this unique problem, this unique Quebec problem is not accurate. Jason's gonna, it follows Rob on the stream. Oh, that is absolutely terrifying. And yeah, another good point, Kevlar Ninja. Torontoite Faith Goldie come in third in the mayoral race. Racists are in every corner of this country. They found someone to run for the PPC in every riding. This is something we have to really keep in mind, right? Let's not pretend that racism in Canada is some rural problem, or it's some problem exclusive to Quebec or exclusive to the prairies. It's really pervasive. And we have to kind of understand that framework if we're going to start dealing with that. do the walk behind Rob like Trump in the 2016 debates. Oh my gosh. Just outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. Okay, let me just get in. So let me just test this. I saw Lodane fussing around with the... Okay, I see. So we're going to get a different guest command each time. That's interesting. Okay. I'm actually just going to throw that in. He's Abdul. Hey, Eytan.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, doing very well. How are you?
Good to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you.
Yeah.
Welcome. It's Eytan from the OffCourt pod, folks.
Yes. You're killing the pronunciation right now, too. Killing in the good way.
Okay, good.
I appreciate that. I
don't
don't know where...
I feel really bad.
No. You I appreciate the correct Jewish pronunciation. I'm not sure where Abdul is, actually, but I was just talking a little bit ago. We were having... we were discussing some of the hockey-related election stuff we want to bring to this half an hour, if you're into that.
Yeah, well, I still have 1:28 by my clock, so I'm sure he's going to be here any moment.
Oh, is there I haven't logged on to the stream yet just because I was up very late last night.
Oh, you're in the stream. We're live.
We're streaming right now. Hey, everybody.
Yeah. Live broadcasting.
Oh, my God. Hi.
Do you just want, Eytan, do you want to just introduce yourself and talk, let everyone know who you are and what the podcast is?
Of course.
I'm going to go very briefly while you're doing that. I'm just going to go run behind myself to go get an energy drink.
Hell yeah.
And I'll be right back.
Hell yeah, everybody. I am Eytan. My co-host Abdul is very late, but I know that he's a little bit, he's dropped about 30 pounds in the past couple weeks. I'm not sure where his energy levels are at, but he is destroying his journey to beating his pre-diabetic diagnosis, which we are very happy with. But we are both the co-hosts of the OffCourt podcast, a podcast about the political economy of sports. We've had 2 seasons with the Harbinger Media Network recently. We explored a variety of topics like the viability of socialist sports in Cuba. We've discussed the history of Israeli sports and how it aided certain Zionist initiatives back in early Palestine days. We've covered a lot of different topics. We're sort of a documentary podcast. We take a few months to really put in deep research into sports-related topics that people who maybe aren't sports fans would be interested in. We try to cover more so the politics than the stats and the analytics and just the human stories behind everything. Abdul brings the strong academia and writing background, and I am just there to talk shit. I do a bit of research, but yeah, that's us, and we're stoked about the telethon and supporting Harbinger today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's really cool to have you involved in the telethon. Very cool. I guess before Abdul gets here, Eytan, I got to ask you. This is going to really this is what people really tuned in for. How do you feel about the Toronto Raptors' upcoming season, starting in just a couple weeks? Where are you at? Are you feeling good?
Yeah, I think the past 2 seasons since the championship have just we've all gone through this emotional downturn as Raptors fans. You know, we got the big moment, and then we had the fun redemption, run it back season, and then last season was just so deflating. Felt like being a Raptors fan from about 12 years ago, and we're still rebuilding, and just nobody cares about us again. And now we're back to that place. Although being very online on Raptors Twitter, me and Abdul, we've noticed that there has been a shift emotionally in Raptors fans, where we are embodying some of that very strong immigrant Nigerian energy from Masai finally. And we're actually believing in ourselves as I've noticed the Raptors fans are becoming even bigger assholes and trolls to other fan bases online. So I'm really excited because I think the vibes are very strong going into the season. I have no idea what's going to happen. You know, there was that meme going around of 10 Spider-Mans pointing at each other with all the sizes of all of our players. If people don't know,
all the 6'9" guys with huge long arms.
Yeah, exactly. We're basically an army of 6'9" guys. So I'm excited. I have zero idea if we're going to be any good whatsoever. Like there's a world where we're the worst team. There's a world where we're in the second round fighting the Brooklyn Nets or something like that. Regardless, the vibes are immaculate right now.
Yeah, the vibes are very good. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I will go to my grave believing that run it back season they would have returned to the championship.
Mm-hmm.
And that obviously, the pandemic, there's been a number of terrible consequences. That obviously the worst consequence to that was that the season was interrupted. I do believe that they looked fantastic prior to the pandemic starting. I think they were headed back to a second championship. I will go to my grave believing that the whole bubble thing was fun and entertaining, but ultimately illegitimate. And yeah. But I do. I agree though. I feel good about this season. I think a lot of people are writing them off. Like last year after this terrible start with all this shit going on and playing in Florida, they managed to claw their way back to 500 and then immediately lost their whole team for like 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty much dead after that. So I think there's a lot of people writing them off that maybe they shouldn't be.
And we should feel comfortable in that situation. We should feel comfortable being back in the write-off. The American side of the NBA is just ignoring us. We need to embrace that feeling. And like I was saying, like project Masai-style energy onto the world, onto Twitter, and just be confident in that place. And not try to be like Americans, the way, which I want to talk about later, Don Cherry is seemingly very hasn't talked about the Canadian election in the past few months, but is very obsessed with American elections on his podcast and just in general, as we know. And I feel like we need to, just going back to Raptors, embody our Canadianness a little bit more, be nationalistic just for the Raptors, and stop trying to be like America in any way. Stop being this little brother,
So Adam Silver, gulag or no gulag?
I think he's been an okay commissioner, but I'm going to say gulag anyway, just to be safe.
Well, look at what he did to our boys, to our beautiful boys.
It's true.
At least we're not Leafs fans. At least we're not Leafs fans. Even the Jays have something to glom onto these days.
Yeah, that's true. By the way, I got to welcome Abdul. Abdul Malik, everyone has joined the stream as well, fashionably late. Kind of a big shot, I guess, a big shot move. But Abdul, happy to have you on the stream. Thanks for joining us.
I'm really sorry for being so late. Did it start half an hour ago?
No.
No, you actually weren't that late. I think Eytan was slightly early, so you were.
I was Jewishly. Big of a deal. You were big time late. I was Jewishly early.
Yeah, I was basically doing the Muslim thing, right? Where it's like, brothers. We never mean the time we mean. No, it was I was working on like a pitch I needed to get out like today, and I was just like, if anyone knows any French slang terms that sound cool in the context of science fiction, specifically from North Africa, put them in the chat. But I only know
all the various curses, and that's all.
Yeah, pretty much like something you would call someone who's a coward or someone who's a piece of shit. Raptors. Scotty Barnes will take us to the promised land and fucking back. I just saw a thing, pretty well known, like sports analytics thing, put Scotty Barnes in like the 99.7th percentile of like athletic wings drafted in the last 20 years.
I loved the immediate turn too, because like everyone was expecting Suggs right in that draft. And everyone immediately kind of recoiled. There was this big kind of like, oh no, what's going on? And the Raptors fans immediately revolted. And then within like 18 hours, everyone was fully on board. Yep. All I had to do was wear the hat around, and we saw the Scotty Barnes energy. And it's immediately like, oh, this guy is incredible.
The first turn was when Toronto. Sorry, Rob, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
The first turn was when Toronto Twitter found out that he was Jamaican.
Yes, real jerk, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's funny. He bought a plane ticket after the day after he was drafted, and went to Toronto for 48 hours just to be like, "This is my city." All right, like I love him. I love him so much.
He's wonderful.
Yeah, they always when we have a new player, there's usually this ceremonial like, look, I'm in Toronto, and they're taking like an Instagram live video, but they're always at like you both know Toronto pretty well. They're always at like Bay and Front or something like that, where there's absolutely nothing at 11 p.m. and they're just like, look, we're in the six, and they're literally just in like an empty downtown core. That just happened a few days ago, which was very cute because he's with like all the new players, including Sam Decker, who there's been a bit of history with him. Famously was told, who was it? J.R. Smith said that Sam Decker told him some, quote, MAGA shit in the locker room a few years ago, but Scotty Barnes is embracing him. So Scotty Barnes is also making Toronto like Sam Decker somehow. So he has this very powerful energy to him.
Apparently, Decker's politics have completely turned around.
Okay.
Apparently, some time away has I'm a big believer in restorative justice.
Yeah.
And as long as he drops 10-5 and 2 a game, he can do whatever he wants. That's the restorative justice.
He can go on the People's Party.
I saw him doing an interview the other day, and he made sure to mention these Winnipeg and Calgary and Ottawa and all these different Canadian cities, and how it was cool to be a part of the whole sort of national team thing. That was cool.
Canada is fake, but basketball is real. That's my hot take on real. Like the Raptors being Canada's team or whatever. Like, I don't like the implications of that, but also they're still, like it's still one of those things. It's like, yeah, it's a community. I don't like the whole idea of like it being representative of like Canadian ideals, but it's like it's nice to have a coast to coast community around like something like a basketball team where it's not like you're not celebrating genocide, right? Yeah. Just like casual labor abuse or whatever, but like you're not celebrating like this like settler state on the grounds of it being a settler state. It's funny when we were talking about like what to talk about here. One of the things I was thinking about was like the CFL is going on right now. Eytan and I know a lot about the CFL because of this podcast. Apparently, we've made some enemies in CFL media, which is unhinged. You say one thing wrong, and they'll write you an essay over email telling you why you're a piece of shit.
Yeah, I even got a DM, and like I'm pretty ambiguous online about my affiliation with podcasts and sports, and somehow a CFL writer from like Winnipeg found me to let me know about all the errors I had made. I think I gave him the thumbs up emoji as a response.
You left him on red. Yeah, but it's funny because like the CFL is very specifically one of those things that's a political lightning rod for like affirming support in your base. You know what I mean? Like, what was it? Brad Wall basically built a big part of his image over like off of the Rough Riders, drinking from the Grey Cup, like going to games constantly, like he's an expert in the Rough Riders or whatever, right? He like made sure that team was always close to him in like a big and meaningful way. It's like when they said Brad Wall is Saskatchewan, right? It's like they met as Saskatchewan as like Rough Riders and Brain. Like it's pretty incredible how like that very specific, like actually kind of shitty league is like so essential to like regional politics in this country.
Especially that region, like Alberta, Saskatchewan, Saskatoon. And I am not saying that all CFL fans are right wing, but I mean, those regions also have they have very strong support for, the People's Party of Canada is basically the NDP in those regions in terms of like being able to gain momentum. So I'm not making any connections. I'm not saying anything general, but I'm stating facts here,
It's funny. I was just in Jasper like 2 weeks ago for a couple of days, like being on my healthy boy shit. And like in those small towns around Jasper, like Edson, Hinton, like real like tourist stops along the way type shit. Even a little outside of that, it's two parties that you see: PPC and Maverick Party. I don't think they're going to win any seats, but I actually wouldn't be surprised just off the eye test if they come in second in a bunch of these places.
I've been seeing PPC t-shirts in Toronto worn by a very diverse coalition of people.
My fucking
troubling.
neighbor has a PPC sign on his goddamn lawn.
My fucking family, when I went to go for Rosh Hashanah in Thornhill, which is a very Jewish suburb of Toronto.
Is that where Drake's from too?
No, Drake is from Forest Hill, which is the midtown Jewish neighborhood of Toronto, where my rich relatives live. So I have a few degrees of separation from Drake. But yeah, there were a lot of PPC signs in Thornhill, which was very interesting. Which is very also Zionist region. And when I brought that up at Rosh Hashanah, the only question my family had was, "Is he Jewish?" Which the answer was yes.
My favorite Drake album is 2014 Forest Hills Kibbutz. It's a fucking terrible joke. But yeah, I hope the stream is going well so far, Rob.
It's going very well. And I just want to remind everyone, our widget is broken. I know it kind of looks like we're getting killed out here and not raising money. We actually are getting a number of really generous donations. We're going to fix the widget eventually. Just want to remind everyone, though, if they want to donate, OffCourt Pod is a huge part of what we're doing at Harbinger Media Network. A number of really wonderful podcasts involved with this. 100% listener supported. If you can donate, there's a donate link on the About section of this Twitch channel. You can also hit the donate command in the chat. Every little bit helps everyone watching. Again, it's a lot of work to put this network together. We got some associated costs. That's what we're trying to do here today. Just reminding everyone, this is doing my professional hosting plugs. I hear.
If you like OffCourt podcasts, donate. This thing is a nightmare to make. It's really fun.
Yeah,
I think
you guys do an amazing amount of work and research onto these episodes. Like, it's really incredible.
I think we might be moving away from a season format to a record when we have the time format. Because
and maybe when events sort of come together to make something relevant. We'll see. We're not sure, but yeah, we the two last seasons we had a lot of adrenaline, I think, to get them done in such short periods of time. Yeah, and more time because of the pandemic. Now that things are reopening, me and Abdul has joined me as a student as well. So
I dropped out of school.
Again?
No. When I had 3 credits left, I dropped out of film school. Spent 8 years clawing my way into a new career as a screenwriter, and now I'm going to school for funsies, taking a degree in African history. Because it was better than Canadian history and European history, which were the other 2 options offered. But yeah, like it's online, Athabasca University, Alberta, baby. 2 credits a semester, and I'm gonna take like 6 years to finish it. But yeah, like it's one of those things where I think like we have a list of episodes, and when we actually end up doing the research for them, we'll just record and release like pretty close together.
Yeah. And the reason I really appreciate what you guys do is because we're talking about there's this really reactionary streak in this country, and there's a huge reactionary streak in sports fandom. And I think if you're someone who identifies more with the left, it's really easy to just like dismiss everything you see from the sports world, because it's like, well, this is just the purview of these racist weirdos that I don't want to have any association with. And I think it's really cool the work that you guys do to kind of dispel some of that and to create a space for people that believe in more left-wing politics and also care about sports ball at the same time. It's an important project because I think it helps people that are part of that world to get exposed to these ideas that we want to hopefully expose them to.
If you're a leftist who doesn't follow sports or sort of dismisses it or doesn't realize that you can both like enjoy something that's not like political but also have like a politically critical relationship with it, like your brain poison, right? Like I think that sports are such a good fucking release for a lot of there's a great take. I think I've mentioned this before. Nathan Coleman Lamb, amazing writer. His show The End of Sport is absolutely incredible. He's a professor at Duke, and he has this great take that athletes are care workers.
I remember you mentioning that to me.
Which is so fucking good because it hits the nail on the head so well. It's fun. I will say it's a lot of work. Like I've been sitting on like 2 books on Calgary Stampede I've read, but I haven't actually organized my fucking notes. and that's the only thing holding us back from recording. And I feel like a jackass.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, why wait if we're going to take a little longer between episodes? Might as well just record it when we record it, release it, and start the next one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm doing the same thing with my research right now on Liverpool anti-fascist soccer. So it is all good, Abdul. And we've made 2 seasons that I think are sort of, for the most part, timeless in terms of episodes. So I also, we were talking about this, that we want to maybe re-promote episodes and bring them back to light, because they're just there with, great research that is not really bound by time, except for the fact that usually me and Abdul open every episode with something that is happening to us in sports or culture right at that moment. But it's a great little time capsule.
Yeah. It's one of those things, Rob, we got to do on your stream is open up basketball GM, like that browser based GM game, and do a rebuild of the 2019 Raptors.
Yes.
How soon can you win a chip? I have put, by the way, the game starts whenever you want it to start, and I'm currently on a season that's in the year 3,371. So that should tell you what I do for fun.
It's all just like cyborgs ripping each other apart.
They're in the Matrix.
Yeah,
that
the salary
fucking
cap has
Matrix.
not changed though. Stagflation is fucking real.
So what have you guys been working? What was the last thing you guys were working on? Was it so you mentioned Don Cherry? I know you did an episode on that.
Yeah,
and an episode on Cuba recently.
The Cuba
what have you been working on specifically?
The Cuba stuff is so much fun, by the way, because it's like Cuba is like, if you want your favorite sports leagues to be not like predatory and exploitative, Cuba built that model. Like, they have a league that's very similar to the MLB, but is just so much better in every conceivable way and stuff like that. Like, I wrote a piece for this recently. We have 2 great episodes on Cuba and like Fidel and stuff like that. Though, like, that's a great place to start with the podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the 2 episodes that Abdul researched are great, and the Jacobin piece is a really good companion. I had mentioned Don Cherry earlier because when we had done our Don Cherry episode, me and Abdul split the duties. He had read a bunch of his books, which, to be honest, I thought sounded like the worst option, but then I had to listen to his entire podcast, which we mentioned in our episode, is a family-run operation with his grandson, the co-host, his granddaughter, the other co-host, and then a third grandson that never speaks, producing the whole show. So I'm still subscribed to the podcast, and I kind of skimmed all the episodes from the past 2 months. Back when we did our episode, it was mostly about Don Cherry's politics and his opinions about Trump. He loved talking about Trump when he first launched the podcast because, he got sort of launched into the post cancellation pipeline. He gets canceled off Sportsnet. He's immediately on Tucker Carlson talking about it. But strangely, in the past few months, he has not mentioned the Canadian election one time in any fashion, not in passing, I think, either, which prompted Abdul, when I told them about this, to ask, is Don Cherry quietly People's Party of Canada supporter? I think so.
I think so. I think he's someone who's probably felt ostracized by a lot of his Conservative Party, like, abandoning him, because their base, like, it's funny because especially if you're in the Toronto bubble, a lot of South Asians and like East Asian people can be quite like progressive, like a lot of Chinatown vote. Well, progressive, a lot of Chinatown. Yeah. I'm not going to call the NDP progressive, but like a lot of people in Chinatown like vote, maybe liberal. A lot of times they vote NDP, right? Stuff like that. But it's like the Conservative Party is reliant on like rich South Asians who bring over hordes of family members and exploit them on like blueberry mansions in BC, or who like flip real estate in Calgary, right? Like, they can't afford to have that kind of anti-immigrant stance that Don Cherry promotes, whereas the PPC can, because I don't think I've met maybe 2 PPPOCs out there, right?
Isn't that one of those guys, the ball breathing guy? Wasn't he one of those guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's Middle Eastern or something, I believe, right? Or okay. Turkish.
Oh, don't get me started on the fucking Turks.
I know. I don't know what I want to talk about. Enes Kanter or...
Wait, it's even funnier because Enes
Fuck
Kanter...
to the traitor Gulen.
Yeah, he's great friends with... he's great friends...
That's good.
He's great friends with Jagmeet Singh, but he just spoke at APAC.
Yeah, he was rubbing shoulders with both Jared Kushner, and I won't go into. I did way too much research about this, but Gilad Erdan, who is the permanent UN representative for Israel, he also started his career by being in direct opposition to the Oslo Accords and becoming like Benjamin Netanyahu's main advisor throughout like the past, like the current, the last intifada or whatever. Like his last achievement is building more police stations in East Jerusalem because of the last flare up. So that's who I was looking into this because I was, my memory, especially growing up in Israel, was that Turkey and Israeli relations are great because Turkey is one of the first Muslim countries to recognize Israel. But I guess in the last little bit, that's changed, which has put Enes Kanter in direct, co-sign territory with people like Jared Kushner and this Gilad fella, which is related to the election a little bit because very recently Justin Trudeau helped Enes Kanter come and play against the Toronto Raptors while he was a member of the Celtics, and he thanked Justin Trudeau for helping him get there because Enes Kanter killed him. Yeah, and that too.
Photo ops constantly. Like Jagmeet Singh posted like a thing being like, Enes Kanter is helping me with my jump shot. And I'm like, he is the last basketball player on earth you want helping you with your jump shot. It's also really funny with Enes because it's like on one hand it's very easy to support him because he's like, I fucking hate Turkey, I fucking hate the establishment. It's like, yes, Enes, like join. Like, please join me in Rojava. And then Rojava. And then the other part of it is like, no, he's part of some like hyper reactionary, like Islamic cult. Like he's part of this like super reactionary strain of Turkish Islam that is like antithetical to both like Turkish Orthodoxy or Kurdish freedom. So it's like, yeah, like on one hand you're like, yeah, we love this. On the other hand, it's like, no, Enes, you're actually worse. It's like finding out someone hates the Liberal Party, but on the other side of the spectrum, right?
Yeah.
He might be the most like just based on all that, he might be one of the most political NBA players, right? Like we don't agree with his politics. To us, maybe Mahmoud Abdul Rauf would be the most political NBA player who we agree with. But then Enes
early
has like
actual victim of cancel culture.
Yeah, exactly. Cancel culture bad. Official here. No.
His house was burned down by the KKK.
Yeah, actually, so never mind. Maybe he is the most political. And Enes is like faux political, APAC political, which is, just war hawk shit.
Yeah, with you're gonna see, Sam Decker and Enes Kanter taking photo ops together, and like Enes's IG post or Decker's IG post be like one of the good ones. Yeah, it's weird. Like Turkey's a weird place, and Enes is just a fucking weird ass guy, start to finish. I also like Kyrie. Kyrie's political in a good way, right?
Yeah. Although we had that cryptic post about masks, I was starting to be like, no, Kyrie, no.
But I love that. It's such a litmus test for like your own politics. Like Kyrie is actually reflecting you because it could be one of like 3 or 4 song references. It could be an anti-mask thing. It could be more spiritual than that. It could be about him.
No one knows.
Yeah, wanting a trade out of Brooklyn or whatever, right? Like, Kyrie is whatever you think Kyrie is. He's this like fluid Schrodinger's cat type of personality where you can just like throw your hopes and dreams or failures on Kyrie Irving. He's hard not to love though. I do respect players who are just openly contemptuous of like the entire establishment of like the leagues. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's very satisfying to see that. There was that.
Well, just his willingness to just like not play because he wanted to attend some like activist meeting, Zoom call or something. Like that's incredibly cool. Like there's no other NBA player that's doing that kind of stuff.
We had that great episode on OffCourt with the Cuba stuff. It was like one of the Miami Marlins general managers got fired for being pro Castro in Miami. And he was just like, yeah, America's a war criminal country. I fucking love Castro.
Yeah.
Like, we can't. Like, I think that's actually one of the reasons, like, if you ask me, I think that's one of the reasons their popularity has declined so badly. Like, they built a new stadium and they can't even get it to like 30% capacity on like good days. I mean, the team also sucks right now. But like, yeah, like it definitely, there's a, I know correlation is not causation, but a decline definitely started after that, which I do like. I do like that this guy's like love of Cuban sports is the death of a fucking backwards ass poverty franchise in the Gusano capital of the world.
Oh my God.
Apologies for any Gusanos in the chat.
That's okay.
We'll survive the nuclear.
We make sure we ban all Gusanos when they show up. So don't worry about that.
Yeah.
And Gulen supporters.
We did do a bit, or Eytan did do a bit of research on the hockey player who's a PPC supporter.
Well, yeah, because after I was listening to those Don Cherry podcasts, I was just curious if there's been any hockey-related endorsements of the PPC, and there's really nothing except for this random player I've never heard of. Yeah, we'll just do quick off-court style research breakdown, and you guys, I'd love to hear your response, but I've never heard of this guy. His name is Theorin Fleury. He is Saskatchewan-born. He mostly played in America, but played for the Flames. And he recently appeared on the PPC YouTube page with an hour-long conversation with Maxime.
Are you pretending not to know Theo? He's a very famous hockey player.
I mean, I have very famously said on the Off-Court podcast that I am completely out of the loop on hockey. Okay. When I grew up in Israel, I was anti-soccer. Now when I'm here, I'm anti-hockey.
Okay,
I just know that. So he was famous.
Yeah, he's a legendary Canadian hockey player.
Oh, okay. Well, he's got his hat behind the PPC.
Yes. Yeah, completely fucking lost it. Very unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I didn't know anything about him, so I was very curious about his Wikipedia to find out that he's one of the smallest players to ever play in the NHL.
Could you imagine if Muggsy Bogues was a Trump supporter?
Exactly.
And then the other Fleury, the Fleury who's currently playing in the league, who's a goalkeeper for the Blackhawks.
This I knew about.
Yeah, Marc-Andre Fleury. The designer of his helmet was like, this is the new, because you know, in hockey, like goalies have like very customized helmets, right? Like it's a real form of expression. I'm still a big fan of the Cujo helmet from the almost woulda, coulda, shoulda Leafs era, but like the designer was like, it's of course the French person, right? And he's from Quebec, was like, yeah, we had 3 designs rejected because they were offensive. It's really limited my creativity. And I'm like, I love the French so much. Like, it's so fucking funny that they're like, yeah, doing a casual like racism is considered like a limitations to their like creative freedom or whatever.
To their imagination. You're limiting them.
Yeah, you're limiting the horizons of just how racist you can be, you know?
Yeah. Well, Eytan and Abdul, like, we're running out of time here. The new slot's going to start soon, but it was a pleasure to have both of you guys come on to the telethon. Really cool. Off-Court Pod, a flagship Harbinger Media podcast. Amazing work that you guys do each and every episode. Before we sign off, you want to just let everyone know, again, where we can find the podcast and that stuff, all that stuff, the plugs you have to do.
Yeah, you can find it at Off-Court Pod. We are trying to keep that Twitter account as active as possible while we take this mini break. And yeah, you can find me at Rabbi Die Hardman on Twitter. And again, I apologize for my hockey knowledge being only based on me dunking on the right-wing aspects of hockey and knowing absolutely nothing else about the sport.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Socialist Raptor. You might just want to mute basketball or Raptors if you follow me and don't care about it. You can, if you're in Calgary, film I wrote is playing at SIF, Calgary International Film Festival next weekend. It'll be in wide release probably in November or December. So run, don't walk to the theaters with your mask and hand sanitizer, and keep your ass peeled for some other stuff.
Back to the movies, like Tom Cruise.
We love the movies, folks. All right.
Well, both of you guys are gonna have to come back on the stream, on my stream, and when the season starts, so we can do maybe a regular Raptors segment, because I love to talk about the Raptors. I'm cultivating this very small niche of communist Raptors fans that we can have these conversations. So pleasure to have both of you guys come on and talk about the season as it progresses.
Stoked to be on.
Absolutely. Take it easy, King.
Thanks, Rob.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
Take care. Okay, that was wonderful. I absolutely love Off-Court Pod. Love Eytan and Abdul. Very happy that they could both join us today. It's weird seeing myself in triplicate there. So we're coming to the end of my block here. Let's just take a look at what is next. I'm supposed to know this. I believe coming up in just one moment, we've got my very good friend, Hillary